Believing in miracles is not about denying reality, but about trusting a higher reality that works beyond what we can see. In a world shaped by logic, evidence, and predictability, the idea of miracles can seem like wishful thinking. Some might say that to believe in miracles is to turn away from reason, to close our eyes to reality and hope for magic. But that's a misunderstanding of what true faith really is. Believing in miracles is not about ignoring the facts or pretending everything is fine. It's about recognizing that, alongside what we can see and measure, there exists a greater, deeper reality, one governed not by chance, but by a sovereign and loving God. Reality, as we commonly define it, is based on what is tangible. We trust what we can touch, test, or prove, but faith invites us to lift our eyes higher. It acknowledges the facts, but refuses to be limited by them. A medical report may say there's no cure, but faith says healing is still possible. The bank account may be empty, but faith says God can provide. The situation may look hopeless, but faith knows that God is never out of options. Faith does not erase reality. It redefines what is ultimately possible. The Bible offers countless examples of this higher reality breaking into everyday life. When David stood before Goliath, the reality was that he was smaller, younger, and outmatched. But David wasn't trusting in appearances. He was trusting in the God who had delivered him from lions and bears. That higher reality, the unseen power of God, changed the outcome. When Jesus fed 5,000 people with just 5 loaves and 2 fish, he wasn't ignoring the problem. He was revealing a heavenly solution that human logic couldn't produce. What's important to understand is that believing in miracles doesn't require blind optimism. It requires trust in the character of God. He is not a genie who grants every wish, but a Father who knows what we need even before we ask. His answers may not always come in the form we expect, but his power is always at work. And even when the outcome isn't what we prayed for, faith allows us to rest in the assurance that he is still good, still present, and still working things together for a greater purpose. In our personal lives, miracles often come when we least expect them, not as flashy interventions, but as quiet shifts, a change of heart, an open door, a moment of peace in the middle of chaos. To believe in miracles is to walk through difficulty with confidence, not because we're in control, but because we know the one who is. So no, believing in miracles doesn't mean closing our eyes to reality. It means opening our hearts to a deeper one, a reality where love conquers fear, where grace overcomes guilt, and where the impossible becomes possible, not by our strength, but by God's power. It is this higher reality that gives us hope, not because we deny what is, but because we trust in what God can do. Miracles often unfold in unexpected ways, not always how we imagined, but always with purpose and grace. We all long for breakthroughs, for those moments when something shifts, healing happens, or the impossible becomes possible. Often, we pray with a specific picture in mind, imagining exactly how and when God will answer. But more often than not, miracles don't arrive in the way we expect. They come quietly, differently, even uncomfortably. Yet, even when they don't match our expectations, they always arrive with divine intention, crafted with purpose and overflowing with grace. When we hear the word miracle, we tend to think of dramatic transformations, sudden healings, financial windfalls, or rescue at the last second. And yes, God does work in those ways, but many miracles are subtle. They are not always fireworks. Sometimes they are whispers. A hardened heart begins to soften. A door closes, only for a better one to open months later. An unexpected connection leads to a lifelong blessing. These are no less miraculous simply because they look ordinary. One of the most powerful truths about miracles is that they are not random. They are guided by a higher wisdom. While we may not understand the how or why, in the moment, God sees what we cannot. He sees beyond the situation, into the past, present, and future. What may feel like a delay is often preparation. What may seem like loss can lead to deeper healing or redirection. His timing is perfect and his ways are higher than ours. Think of the story of Lazarus. When Jesus heard that his dear friend was sick, he didn't rush to heal him immediately. In fact, he delayed so long that Lazarus died. To those watching, it seemed like a missed opportunity, a failure. But Jesus had a greater miracle in store, not just healing, but resurrection. What looked like the end became a testimony of God's power over death itself. It was unexpected, and it was far greater than anyone imagined. Our lives are filled with similar moments, even if we don't always recognize them as miracles. That job we didn't get that made us feel defeated. It pushed us toward a calling we would have never pursued otherwise. That relationship that ended, it created space for healing, growth, and ultimately someone who sees us with God's eyes. The storm that nearly broke us. It taught us resilience and brought us closer to God's heart. Miracles remind us that God is not confined to our plans. His answers may not always look like what we prayed for, but they are always wrapped in grace. Sometimes he changes our circumstances. Other times he changes us within the circumstances. But in every case, the miracle serves a divine purpose. So when things don't go as expected, don't lose heart. Be open to the quiet, surprising ways God moves. Trust that even in the confusion, he is working with intention, because every miracle, no matter how small or unexpected, is a sign that grace is alive and God is still writing your story. In moments of despair, when every path seems closed, faith reminds us that God's power is not limited by human circumstances. Life has a way of confronting us with situations that feel impossible, moments where we stand still, unable to move forward, unsure of where to turn. These are the times when our human strength reaches its end, when even the best plans seem to fail, and when hope flickers like a dying flame. But it is in these very moments that faith rises to speak a deeper truth. God is still in control, and his power is not bound by what we see or understand. Human circumstances are limited by time, space, resources, and ability. We see only what is in front of us: the closed doors, the unanswered prayers, the sickness that won't heal, the job that won't come, the relationship that won't mend. But faith lifts our eyes above the immediate and reminds us that God operates in an entirely different realm. Where we see barriers, he sees opportunities. Where we see endings, he begins something new. The beauty of God's power is that it is not subject to the same limits we face. He created the universe with a word. He calmed the storm with a command. He raised the dead when hope was long gone. These acts are not simply ancient stories. They are testimonies of who he still is. God doesn't need ideal conditions to work. In fact, he often does his greatest work in the most impossible of situations. Think about it. When Abraham and Sarah were far too old to have children, God fulfilled his promise. When Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, God shut the mouths of the lions. When Jesus was crucified and placed in a sealed tomb, God raised him on the third day. These were not moments of human triumph. They were moments when divine power broke through human limitation. In your own life, you may be facing a situation that seems beyond hope. Maybe you've prayed and waited and nothing has changed. Maybe fear has crept in and doubt has taken root. But let me remind you, your circumstances are not the final authority. God is. Faith is not about ignoring reality. It's about anchoring ourselves in a deeper reality where God is working behind the scenes, weaving together a purpose we may not yet see. Sometimes God's way forward is not the path we imagined. Sometimes he doesn't remove the storm. He gives us peace in the middle of it. But always, always he is present. His power is alive, and he is not limited by the walls we see around us. So when the way is shut and the night feels long, let faith speak louder than fear. Let it remind you God is not finished. He still makes a way where there seems to be no way, and his power will always exceed the limits of our circumstances. As we reflect on the power of faith and the reality of miracles, let us remember this simple but profound truth. God is still at work, often in ways we cannot see, and always with purpose beyond our understanding. Believing in miracles doesn't mean we ignore the pain, the challenges, or the facts of life. It means we trust in a higher power who is not limited by any of them. It means we open our hearts to the possibility that God is doing more behind the scenes than we could ever imagine. So whether you're waiting, hoping, praying, or doubting, hold on. Keep believing, because the same God who parted seas, raised the dead, and multiplied the loaves is still writing stories of grace and wonder today, including yours. Thank you all for listening, and may your faith continue to grow stronger as you trust in the one who still performs miracles.